Welcome back to the Nam Tum Makers family. Today we visit Infinity Garage to see their custom 500 cubic centimeters Kawasaki Go-Kart project. With 10 plus years of fabrication and engineering experience, he's an expert at this. However, modifying an old go-kart frame is tedious, requiring endless cutting and welding. So, he scrapped that plan and decided to build a brand new chassis completely from scratch. The frame is constructed from 32mm seamless steel tubing, and the powerhouse driving it is a 500 cubic centimeters parallel twin engine from a Kawasaki GPZ500. It makes 60 horsepower at 9,500 revolutions per minute. Insane for such a light machine. Will it run smoothly or blow apart on startup? Let's find out in today's video. After months of blood, sweat, and fabrication, this custom go-kart is finally ready for its maiden shakedown. And honestly, it's absolute madness. The acceleration is brutal, the handling is pure adrenaline, and it is a total blast to drive. You can check out the full build video over on the Infinity Garage channel. We've dropped the link in the description below. Would you want to get behind the wheel of a crazy kart like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. See you guys in the next video.